All right, and last but not least, let's finally talk about In the Heights. Right, this was one of my highly anticipated films of the year. This is a musical. It's based, sorry, off of the stage musical of the same name by Lin-Manuel Miranda and Chiara Alegria Hudes. If I got the name wrong, forgive me. But with Lin-Manuel in particular, he, well, his the film Hamilton, which was a more or less like a coupling of different shoots of different performances of the same stage play, you know what I mean? And for me, always wanting to see that stage play in real life, but didn't, never got the chance to see it actually. I was glad that I was able to watch it at home, you know what I mean? Courtesy of Disney Plus, right? And I loved that film. I mean, Ricardo and I, we praised that film to high heaven. And I loved it so much it actually made it as number one. So yeah, Hamilton was my top favorite movie of 2020, right? So when I heard In the Heights now, I was like really excited. It's like, okay, you know what I mean? But in my head I was thinking it was Lin Manuel directing this film, but actually it is John M. Chu who made this film, right? And if you remember, he's the guy who did uh Crazy
Crazy
Rich
Rich
Asians, right?
Asians.
Yeah, which was a show that I thoroughly enjoyed. I wasn't in love with it, but I thoroughly enjoyed it, right? Particularly the fact that yeah, we given Chinese and Chinese American actors time to shine, right? So yeah, can't be mad at that, right? And in this case here, you know what I mean, it's well, I should say entirely a Latinx cast. It's set in Washington Heights, you know what I mean, in Manhattan, which is still a place that I would, I've been in Manhattan before actually, but I haven't been in Washington Heights itself, right? But yeah, you know what I mean? It's this urban tale, but it's a musical as well. And it's coming out the same year as, West Side Story. So I know, I love that, the contrast with it, because if you remember the old West Side Story, had a Latin cast, but, the leads themselves weren't Latino at all, right? So I have a feeling that's what Steven Spielberg is rectifying with this remake here. But the point is, here we have yes, we're all Latinos. It's our film. It's our time to shine. We in New York. We're gonna make this big and bold and all that kind of stuff. And yeah, we'll see how this film plays out, right? So, Tracy, if you don't mind, what was In the Heights about?
So In the Heights, really and truly is about dreams. It is about your little dream, and then it sort of talks about the dreams of all the people who are there in Washington Heights. So you have a main character whose dream it is to basically go back to the Dominican Republic and restart his father's business, because they're all immigrants, and and they all came to America. You have a character there whose name is Grandma Abuela Claudia, and
Claudia.
Claudia, yeah. And Claudia, she never had children of her own, but like her dream is to make everybody in that area happy, and she has more or less taken care of that entire village, that entire area there of Washington Heights. Then you also have Dream in the sense of Dreamers, which is a political discourse, because you have because I remember when this film was coming out. This film was coming out originally during the
whole drive.
yeah. So the whole that whole scene playing out there. So everybody has a dream, and it's how the dream is played out. You have a character who is there who just for want of a better way of putting it, escaped Washington Heights, and she's going to Stanford. But her dream is something else, whereas her father's dream is living through her by going to Stanford, because he never really graduated from high school. And so for me, in the core of In the Heights really and truly is about everybody dealing with like how dreams impact on them. And there's a phrase that Usnavi, which is the main character, which the story behind his name is truly hilarious. It is
Yeah.
legitimately hilarious. Because I wasn't even thinking about that until I saw it. But there's a line that he says in terms of like dreams is not some fairy tale some fairy tale thing. It takes a lot of work, and it's hard, and sometimes you can have disappointments. And as you watch how things progress and how people move in order to achieve their dreams or to move forward in life in general, you realize it really isn't a, a straightforward fairy tale story. It's not a fairy tale story at all. For me, the idea of like the way how it ended, in terms of how the film of itself ended, and we will talk about that, was one of those things that I kind of sat back and I was like, oh, this is warm. This is really cool. For me, I kind of looked at it and I thought there's a line that I have written down somewhere here where it says that In the Heights for me was like a warm hug, and I really think that is like the way how I would kind of ramp it up, or wrap it up rather, that it was a warm hug. There was certain similarities that I kind of got, to, strangely enough, Do the Right Thing, the idea of like the
Yeah,
blackout being
Hot
where
City.
everything, yeah, where
Yeah,
everything
heat wave. Yeah.
goes completely. I will say that there's somebody who I follow on Twitter who made the remark, can John Cho direct all musicals from now on? And I'm inclined to say yes. Like I love musicals. I grew up loving musicals, and then of course we're in Trinidad, so every Sunday we had a Bollywood musical basically, on
Uh-huh.
TCT. So
Yep.
you know we're surrounded by musicals, and for me this felt like it felt beautiful, it felt cool, it felt like watching, to be honest with you, this is a weird similarity, but it felt like how I felt watching Rent, the actual movie,
You
not
know,
the
which
stage
by the
production.
way, I still actually I saw in the States, ironically.
Yeah,
When I was, yeah, I saw it there, but that was like ages ago. I need to rewatch it, to be honest.
I have this weird thing, and this is me veering off slightly, but I have this weird thing. There's some musicals that I prefer the musical, like the Broadway version of it, to the film. So like, the Chicago soundtrack that I have is the Broadway revival with Baby Newirth versus necessarily sitting down and watching Catherine Zeta-Jones. But in terms of like Rent for me, I preferred the film than the actual Broadway cast version.
Right.
But in terms of In the Heights, it was so colorful and the music sticks in your head, and it just makes you want to dance. And there's a line that I have here that says, "It felt like pulling out one of my Putumayo CDs, like my Latin." Walking into Mode Live and buying a Latin Putumayo world music CD or something,
Mm.
and just like letting that flow. It felt really good. And on a more personal level, it sort of kind of just made me remember my own grandmother, which is another story unto itself. But I enjoyed this. I feel like it's a very weird thing for me. Like, of all the stuff that has come out for the year, it's Cruella and In the Heights that have made me feel, oh, movies are back again. Like I sat down and I watched Mortal Kombat, and that was Mortal Kombat.
Yeah.
That was Mortal Kombat. But watching those two movies, it feels like, if okay, we're at the movies again, even though right now, especially in our region, what we really are is at home watching it on Disney Plus. But it felt like a breath of fresh air, and I think it's one of those movies that I will more than likely go back to, and I am queuing up the soundtrack at some point. So I will, once I have that, I will send word. But yeah, yeah, this was vibes for me.
All right. Well, I will save my thoughts for last, right? But Ricardo, what were your thoughts on In the Heights?
Yeah, I kind of enjoyed this. For what I understand, it was very different from the original play. But
Oh,
I
really?
kind of,
Okay.
yeah, I don't care. I kind of don't care about stuff like that. I dug it
That
for
I
I dug
didn't.
it for what it was. Yeah, I dug it for what it was. But I heard for what I heard, it could have been a lot better. But you can't miss what you don't know about, right? So for what it was, I was cool. Like I sure could see the play and then be like, oh shit, they fuck up this movie, but no, it was fine. Um, for what it was, I like the musical stuff is work for me mostly. I it was the only thing I don't like is the whole talking music stuff. Like I tend to not like that. If you just have a straight up song, great. But if you're doing the talky dialogue, musicy dialogue, halfway stuff, as that's
Right.
kind of annoying. But everybody was decent in it. My boy from Walking Dead, Dr. Drew.
Yeah,
Um,
Corey
good.
Hawkins was in it, right? And
Yeah,
yeah, we
he was
played a
good.
mixed character. I was like, ah,
Yeah,
okay, okay.
the story wasn't all that strong, and then the whole dreamers thing is a little falls a little flat since that has been resolved in the real world. So it was just kind of bad timing in that way. If it wasn't resolved and Trump was still president, then yeah, it would have been a bigger deal for. I would imagine it'd be a bigger deal for people. But I dug it for what it was. It was mostly fine. I can't say I loved it because the stories was a little on the cliche then for me. But it was still good. Like it was still pretty good for what it is. Yeah, I dug it. I can't say I'm not sure about because musicals. I don't know what to say about musicals. So I don't know. So I'll just rate it one time, 6 out of 10, is fine.
All right. Well, I guess you have the lowest out of everyone here,
Mhm.
which is fine. I mean, you have your view, right? And we have ours. For
But
me, though, uh
Matthew, that the guy from the guy who played, I think his name is Billy. He was in Doctor Who, right? The
who
the
played
the Yeah, the black guy who was Usnavi's best friend. He
Benny?
was, yeah, Benny. He
Right?
was what?
No, that he
He was
no that's not he wasn't in Doctor Who. He was in
the new one, the new one with the 13th Doctor.
no, I'm looking
Oh,
here.
okay.
He's not in that actually.
Oh well, then forget.
He was a Walking Dead actually. I don't even know if he alive in that show or not. I don't know.
Oh my God,
Yeah.
no, no, that's
Yeah.
right. Right.
All right. Well, for me though, I thoroughly enjoy this, right? But here's the thing with this show, right? It is very unapologetically a musical to the point that
Yeah.
yes, you have to suspend your disbelief, right? And this is like a really interesting thing with musicals. Like one day I really have to sit down and like list take in the writing of musical films, right? I know a majority of them are based on stage plays and all that kind of stuff, right? Stage musicals, sorry, right? But I really just need to zero in on the writing of a musical feature film, right? Because I feel like there's a process to it. Like you have to know how to bring in the music, how to have how to, lead up to it. Basically, what stuff could be fantastical, what stuff isn't, and all that kind of thing, right? So for me, this felt like like a modernization of classic musical films. You know what I mean? Whether it's like the old West Side Story from 1961, you know what I mean, and stuff like that. That it just felt very much like that, or I should say, like Singing in the Rain, for example, or American in Paris. You know what I mean? Just
Right.
this old school. Like you could tell
Right.
that
Yeah.
they're drawing from those old films. And what this film really reminded me a lot, easy reference, is La La Land, right? But what I love
Yeah.
about that movie, right, even though it's not perfect, is how they blend the fantasy with reality. You know, because at the end of the day, musicals are meant to be escapists, right? They're meant to kind of show, oh, you know what I mean? This is how the world could be if we all sing and express ourselves and love conquers all and all that kind of stuff, right? But with La La Land, now they kind of show, well, it could, it's part of film. It's part of that genre. It's part of fantasy, right? But the reality is, life isn't really like that, right? So, yes, the message itself is, I don't want to say hokey, but it's like, the idea of dreams and all that kind of stuff. Like, in the real world, it's not as easy as just believing in yourself, right? Like, it's not really like that, right? But I will lie though, I do like when shoes could just come and tell you, look, at the end of the day, is a musical. Look, in this 2.5 hour runtime, just buy into it. Just buy into the show. You know what I mean? And you could come out of it still the jaded cynic that you were going into it. But look, this is the message that we're trying to tell here. Take it as you will, right? So I went in and yeah, even though I might come out of it like, you know what? Yeah, but life don't really work that way, though. At the end of the day, it does not matter. It's a musical. It's escapist. It's meant to entertain, right? And I was entertained from the beginning to the very end. Right? I'll get to the very end in a bit, right? The music was fantastic. Right? All the songs were dope. Um, as you brought up Ricardo, the sort of talky, singy vibe, I don't think. Well, I know that this was going on long before Hamilton, right? But I feel like this is Lin-Manuel's signature. Like he has to
Yeah.
have characters talk in between songs, and that's another thing I have to like
So no,
study in terms
here's the
of
okay. So
narratives. That like,
on
how does
here's
it
the thing about
work?
that.
Where one sec, like how does it work? Like you have a song. Like let's just say, for example, what's the name of the song by Blackout, right? Where the
Right.
blackout takes place, and it ends with, well, pretty much involves characters shooting fireworks, right?
Yes.
But the chorus would be about something about let the fireworks fly or something like that. But in between that, you hear the characters talk to each other, so you're wondering, is this still part of the song, or is it meant to be part of the song, or is it just there to build tension, but you still have the fireworks stuff going on? So it's those things that you have to, like, I really, really want to dive into that. But when you see it visually, it makes sense, you know what I mean? But in your head, you're kind of wondering, is this really part of the song, though? So it's that kind of vibe there. But yeah, go ahead,
Rent
Ricardo.
does that.
Okay. Like I wondered if it's just like a creative choice. Like, okay, well, this is the moment. We need a hook, so let the hook be about fireworks. But let's have these characters kind of quarrel or look for each other because the place is dark and we can't see each other there. So it's telling the story while having the song play. That kind of vibe there. Those things that really like fascinate me about these movie musicals, right? So yeah, Ricardo, you say it?
Yeah, no, I was saying the thing with that is that it works on a stage play, like within a stage setting, yeah, that's fine. It's something in
Right.
movies that you have to, again, it's suspension of disbelief, this kind of throw you off with it now. Because if it just move into music, that's fine. And you have characters, normal dialogue, and then you move into music, that's fine. But when you do this mix up thing, I don't really work in a movie. But on a stage
Mhm.
play, perfectly fine, right? It
Right.
works well. But as the aesthetic, I don't know. My brain just can't pull up theater terms or whatever it is, but you know what we're talking about, right? So
Yeah,
that's it. Yeah.
yeah, definitely. And I won't lie though, like for me, there were points where I was like, I'm not sure if the talkie CET working. Case in point, there's a song called Champagne, right, which
Right.
involves the lead characters, Usnavi, who by the way is played by my boy Anthony Ramos, who was on Hamilton, by the way,
Right.
and
Right. Yeah.
Melissa Barrera, quite lovely actress I would say, the first time I seen her on screen, who plays Vanessa, right? That would be Usnavi's love interest, right? And it's only like I was taking in the lyrics though, and I was kind of laughing to myself at how cheesy it was, until I realized two things. One, it's all done in a long take, and it's really cool.
Yeah.
And secondly, it's what it's all leading up to. I wondered, wait, you have a song called Champagne. So basically, without spoiling much, Vanessa shows up to Osnavi with a bottle of champagne, right? And it's what it's all leading up to. That's what we see. I was like, this is kind of corny, though. But like when I really thought about it, it's like, oh, it's what it's all leading up to, and when it ends, it's like, oh, okay, I get now, right? So yes, it does have a sort of gleeful cheesiness to it, which I will lie, it got to me.
Yeah.
It really got to me. Yeah? I would say if you're just really cynical, you just really hate musicals, you will not buy into it at all. You will just find this to be like the corniest shit ever. But I just like the fact that the show is just like, look, it's a musical. We having fun. In this world, characters could come in and sing about champagne, but it goes way deeper than that, right? And it works, right? But yeah, the songs were great though. My favorite song, hands down, is 96,000. It has the best musical performance, like in the whole movie, in my opinion. I mean, there's not a lot of like standout, like visual performances, right? Well, I mean, there are, but I talk about like where there's like tons of extras, dancing and stuff like that. But this one in particular, which takes place in this pool, I thought was
Hmm.
just fantastic. Loved everything about it, and it really brought the summer vibe of the whole film. 'Cause yeah, true and true, this is a summer film. I will say this right off the bat. This is gonna go down as one of the best summer films of all time, I would say, though, just because of its setting and how it just really captures that mood, though. It is very New York, true and true, from the bodegas to the way how characters talk and dress to um the what we call it by the fire extinguishers, the hydrants, you know what I mean, just turning them up and just the water gushing out and wetting the streets. It's all that. It's all New York dread. And as someone who loves New York, I just loved everything about it though. I was surprised to see actors I didn't expect to see, like Asi McGill, Stephanie Beatrix, from Brooklyn Nine-Nine, Somanex Gill,
Yes.
Dasha Polanco from Orange is the New Black, and The Irishman. Yes, she's been starring in a lot of great films, right? Yeah, and even Lin-Manuel make an appearance. He's a Piragua guy, and there's
Yeah,
a really
in the
cool moment
beginning.
where he's trying to, he's selling his stuff there, in Trinidad we call it snow cone, right? So he's doing his thing, and there's this rival ice cream guy who, by the way, is played by Christopher Jackson, who was also in Hamilton, and he had a great performance. What was the character he played by? He played George Washington, right, in Hamilton.
Right.
Yeah, and he was great in that. Speaking of which, there is a blink and you miss it reference to Hamilton. Is a song that plays. I wouldn't say where it happens or how it happens, but when I heard it, I was like, all right, I like that. I like that. I like that. That's a great Hamilton reference. I love that, right? The story itself is nothing new, right? It's there's the idea of these young characters just more or less chasing dreams, though. But Uznavi, I mean, because he's just so charismatic and stuff like that, you buy into his dream, and it's just basically him wanting to own his own sort of like restaurant bar place in Dominican Republic, where his father was from,
His
right?
father.
Yeah. Vanessa, who wants to be this fashion designer, right, and what she has to go through. The character of Nina, who's played by Leslie Grace, I actually loved her character as well, right?
Yeah.
Who is the love interest to Benny, right? Who's played by Corey Hawkins. I particularly dug her story where, yeah, you know what I mean, you went to college, you want to have a better life for yourself, but it didn't play out that way. So you come back and you feel like you come back like you lost a war, and you feel like everybody's kind of turning back on you. You know what I mean? And even though they don't, even though they can't, they still accept her because she's part of the block. It's still like, but I feel you all, Jed. I really feel all that. You know what I mean? And I actually dug that story. Benny, you know what I mean, is more or less like him just trying to be responsible and trying to do the right, well, just try to be responsible, right? What was his profession again?
A
He was
dispatch.
working. Yeah, he was working at the dispatch basically. Yeah, yeah. Um, and if I have one gripe though, I wish that we got like because I'm a closure guy, right? Like I told you, I gotten to see where his story arc ends. It just kind of stops, and it's like, all right, well, I still wait to see what happened next to him now. I do love that you get some really great moments with Nina, a few great musical numbers. One in particular involving an actual like brownstone, like actual apartment building. And when I saw that, won't lie, jaw drop. I was like, John, showing off now. You're showing off now. But yeah, that was just so perfectly executed though. And I'm not just talking about dance choreography, I'm talking about visuals itself. It's one of those
Yeah.
things that
Yeah.
I imagine Lin-Manuel had in his head when he came up with the story, like, oh, it's New York. It's a New York musical. And that to me is just like, all right, you don't get as New York as this. You know what I mean? But it's such a fantastic moment. I really, really dug that. There's also the character of Sonny, who's played by Gregory Diaz the fourth. I thought that he was great. He was quite charismatic as well. He's the cousin to Uznavi as well. And yeah, I mean he was real cool as well. But I love that, later on they gave him a little conflict as well too. And even though we got like a resolution as to how that conflict would be solved basically, I honestly thought that you know me again. I like closure, so I wanted to see what happened to the character afterwards. You know what I mean? And we don't really see that, right? The side characters were cool as well, but they don't really spend that much time on them though. But one thing though, Abuela, I thought that her character was great, just being the matriarch of the whole block, right? Now here's the thing. Here's the thing, right? Again, suspension of disbelief, right? There is a blackout that takes place in this film, right? Now, I don't know everything about New York history, but I know like back in I think it's 1976 or 77, there was this like infamous blackout that took place, right? But the amount of time this blackout takes place in this movie how it is caused and how it is fixed though, even though I was suspended in disbelief though, I was still like, what? You know what I mean? Like it just took me out of it for like about a few seconds though. It is so like varied on fantasy, dread, and symbolism. It's just like wow, right? But as far as the
Mm-hmm.
symbolism go, it works. It totally works, right? And you do
Mm-hmm.
get an excellent number with Abuela. I didn't see this coming, right? But visually, how it was put together, and especially that final shot involving her, somewhat
Yeah.
final, that's all I'll
Yeah.
say, was perfect, perfect. Couldn't think of a better way to end it off, though. And as far as like the songs itself, like the performances, yeah, you get some great dancing. You know what I mean? There's a lot of hip hop dancing involved in it too. Some traditional like Broadway style dancing and singing and all that kind of stuff. I did pick up on a bit of lip singing as well. Like I'm not expecting all the actors to to sing and everything, particularly with Dasha and Stephanie. Like Stephanie, like I was watching her lips do it. I was like, yeah, there's some lip singing here going on. Clearly, right? Although I would love to think that yes, Stephanie Beatrix sung all the vocals. Right? I could be wrong. I would love it that it was everybody who was on film, just sung everything,
Right.
behind the scenes. I would love to think so. But maybe behind the scenes there was some, some Bollywood style lip singing here and there, right? But other than that, though, I thought that the songs were great. The musical numbers were fantastic. They really owe a lot to traditional musical films and all that kind of stuff. And the premise itself, while it's not new original, um, it was quite captivating. And I love how ever so often they will make it kind of grounded in realism. You know what I mean? They will make it very like this is something that immigrants will go through, and this is what first, third, or second or third generations will go through as far as like business ownership and stuff like that.
Mm-hmm.
They do ever so often hint on gentrification. You know what I mean? And just different things like that, now, right? So I love the fact that it was very modern as well, right? It didn't feel dated, even though like the way how the performances were put together, does harken back to old school musicals and stuff like that, right? And again, I just love that it was just wholeheartedly, unabashedly just embracing its musicalness, right? Even though yes, there are points where it's like, all right, like come on, mantra, like really, you know what I mean? And this is kind of silly and dumb, right? But still, it's just about the vibe of it. And overall, just to get to return though, yeah, it's just a very summery vibe. It's very bright, it's very vibrant, but very emotionally driven as well too.
Yeah.
There's a particular moment, yeah, Tracy, you know what I'm talking about though, involving a character and how it just like hit me, Jen, and I was close to shedding a man tears. You know what I mean? I was very
It.
close to it, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, but the overall theme of dreams itself though is a very common one, is a very relatable one, and something that even I myself I am a sucker for, Dread. And yeah, I mean, even though the world is like this, I could still come out of it like, yeah, I feel inspired, man. I could make a little change, and it's about home, and it's about the community and all that kind of stuff, Dread. And last thing I'll say before I get to return as well, the heart of the show too is the idea of not just dreams but just home, about community, about family. You really feel that family dynamic throughout the way how the
Mm-hmm.
characters interact with each other. When the moments when they're singing and dancing
Yeah.
together, it feels very homegrown, and just how it pays a lot. It really pays a lot of tribute to Latin American culture, just Latin culture as a whole, right? The references to Latin speaking to Spanish speaking musicians, and just the culture and all that kind of stuff too. It really is a love letter to that culture as well. And I mean, I'm not Latin, but I felt that. I felt that to my bones watching this. So at the end of the day, guys, yes, it is a musical true and true. And I know it are people who just do like musicals. Some people just don't like it because they have a lot of singing. Some people don't like it because it's fantastical. But I just like the fact that this movie was just like, yeah, this is what we are, and we don't care. And we're just gonna entertain you from start to end. And speaking of end, wait until the end credits, because there's a nice post credit scene which I will lie, I clap at and I laugh, and it was just so great, right? Even though it's the a certain person kind of reminding people, hey, you know what I mean? I was in the original thing too, you know what I mean? So it's like that, right? But that moment was just joy, right? And yes, it is a joyous film, and that really what it was. It just really meant to put smiles to faces and just really warm your heart while you watch this. And you don't see movies like this every day, right? Um, and for John and Lin-Manuel and his cast and crew who just went above and beyond the Call of Duty to just entertain people, yeah, man, I have to give them a stand ovation for this, man. So I don't know what we're gonna get with West Side Story. I think it's gonna be a different
Oh
beast
boy.
altogether. But as far as like just bright, colorful, vibrant summer films go, yeah, this is one that's gonna go down as one of the greatest in my opinion, Trent. And as far as modern movie musicals though, this is gonna be one of the best in over time. Not saying I'm some musical connoisseur and I could compare this to old ones and oh, it's not like the old West Side Story or Fiddler on the Roof or Jesus Christ Superstar. No,
Any names you call?
you know what I mean? Like I'm not even gonna do that. It's its own thing, but it's harkening back to old, musicals. It's capturing that joy that you get, that escapism that you get when you watch movies of that nature. So for me, rating wise, I'm gonna give this a light 4.5 out of 5. Man, this is one of the year's best films. It's one of my favorite films of the year. And I know when I watch it over, I will nitpick more of the narrative, especially with how the characters talk while they're singing and all that kind of stuff though. But
Mhm.
again, it's a musical. Just ride with it, right? It's a musical. This is what's going on. This is the vibe of it. It wastes no time telling you the vibe of the show itself. So it's a matter of whether you want to stick it out throughout the 2.5 hour runtime or not, right? But at the end of the day, guys, it's a musical. Deal with it, right? And it's a great one. Not gonna say it's one of the greatest that in time we will see, but this actually is one of my favorites, hands down. And I would say, yeah, I mean, I don't know what we're gonna get with West Side Story, but hey, at least we have some good competition, hopefully, right? Maybe between time, this movie's a real deal. If you're looking for something to kick off the summer in fine style, yeah, definitely watch In the Heights, man.
No, yeah, I was just going to just throw this out in terms of these sing-songy things because it's funny once you mentioned like Jesus Christ Superstar. There is there's a way I don't know if it's because I really don't know if it's like to for emphasis or anything of the sort, but with Jesus Christ Superstar and Rent, and I keep going back to Rent as well. There are parts in there where the singing the singing into the speaking into the singing is a deliberate point. So like there's a little piece there where Jesus turns to the disciples and he's like, I can't believe that men like you are so thick, shallow, and slow. Not one of you will care whether or not I come and go. And it sings into that kind of vibe. And then in terms of like Rent does this thing where I think it's during La Vie Boheme, where the two characters who will eventually find out stories about themselves that both of them actually have HIV. There's a part in it where they just kind of stop. She checks her pager. The music stops. She checks her pager, and she realizes that it's an AZT break, which is some sort of pill that they had to take, and they kind of do a sing song element that leads back into speaking. So for me, seeing that play out here was like it kind of felt like home. It kind of felt like okay, like this is normal. Like I've had to see that in a couple other things, even with Chicago. I'm trying to figure out a couple shots in Chicago, but even in Chicago, I had a couple of it that moved like that. So I think like that is something that it might really and truly affect some people, and I can understand why. But if you are into musicals, you'll probably just ride that wave. And if you aren't into musicals, chances are the way how the character dynamics operate with, like how the characters operate with each other, might allow you to bypass that in the same way like Rent or Jesus Christ Superstar, that kind of vibe.
Right, right, right. And last thing last, because Netflix was smart enough to do this. They actually dropped the first trailer for Lin-Manuel Miranda's directorial debut, that would be Tick Tick Boom, right?
I want that.
Which stars Andrew Garfield, right? And I made a
Mm-hmm.
joke that he didn't have to be in a third Spider-Man movie to show off that he could sing and dance, right? But yeah, because the funny thing is like I honestly forgot that John M. Chu was directing In the Heights. For a while I actually forgot. I thought it was Lin's film, right? Lin-Manuel's film. But this one is actually his, right? And it's actually based off of someone else's work, right? So it's not just based off of his, stage plays or anything like that, right? But that one I'm actually excited for. I'm really curious to see how Lin-Manuel, because clearly he is like uber, passionate about, the art of the musical, not just, on stage, but also on film as well, too. I could see that in the Heights, but I want to see how he's going to translate what he's been doing on Broadway and, translating in a sense to film in this movie here. So, supposed to get in it late, like by the end of this year, hopefully. So, yeah, kind of excited to see what Lin-Manuel does, man. But for me, though, this is another win for Lin-Manuel, even though he didn't directly this film here. And yeah, I just want to see his career blow up as far as these modern musicals go, man. So yeah, I mean, sky's the limit, hopefully.
Funny enough, where Tick Tick Boom is concerned, Tick Tick Boom is kind of like focusing on Jonathan Lawson, who actually was the guy who created Rent. So it's a weird kind of circle thing that's happening there with that, and the idea of bringing Garfield in to play the iconic Jonathan Lawson. That is something that I am eagerly looking forward to.
Definitely. Hey, this is Matthew Bailey, and I hope you've enjoyed this segment of the BS Beats and Bailey podcast. If you'd like to hear the full episode, hit up my link tree. On the other side of my head are 2 videos you can check out. Like this video if you like it, feel free to subscribe and hit the bell as well. Thanks for listening, and until the next one, take care, peace.